First question that I have here, asking the esteemed panel, what do you see as the biggest cause of weight gain for today's youth and population in general? Things have changed definitely from when most of us were all kids running around and playing in the neighborhood. So could it be, Cynthia, would you say it's basically what's put in front of us every day on our tables?
I think that the biggest thing that's changed, which it's so great to have so many experts here, but serving size, which so many people can relate to, is one of the biggest things. I mean, a portion of protein is supposed to be the size of your fist, or excuse me, the size of the palm of your hand. So everybody hold up their palm. Okay. So there's so much that has to do with how much we're eating, and our children really don't know what a serving size is. So that's one of the reasons.
All right, what about, if you'd like to address this on soda, fast food? I know you have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, I like to talk about beverages and the way they really hit home in the film tonight. And I think it was about 3 seasons ago, I had a young man in The Biggest Loser who was big, but he wasn't tall. He didn't have a huge frame. But he drank 2 6-packs of Dr. Pepper a day. And he lived in the South, so he drank a gallon or 2 of sweet tea a day. And his calorie intake from his beverages alone before a single bite of food was 2,200 calories. And so I think it's really important to impress upon everybody how important it is that we focus on eating our calories for the most part. That's what we do on the ranch. With the exception of milk, we really focus on eating our calories.
Okay, Dr. Akers, I wanted to know about your thoughts on exercise.
Well, thank you, Tina. My practice is about movement, being a kinesiologist and a nutritionist, so I'm going to say exercise is one of the huge factors, the movement, the problem of lack of movement. So I'm voting for movement problems in our modern society.
How do we deal with that when it comes to, how many of us remember when we had PE in high school all 4 years, and we just basically always had our little, pillowcase with our outfits, and we had to go to school and then wash them on Friday, right? Brought them home on Friday. It's like, oh my goodness.
That's true.
But we always had exercise. There was always activity. So Dr. Akers, how do you address that when we don't have that anymore?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, having 3 teenagers and really having a real life and dealing with these health issues, why don't they get out and exercise more and move? But being in the profession, I have access to a lot of the education about how our bodies work and what perhaps has the modern society done to our bodies or modified it. And really what the movie brought out was really important is not only the sedentary lifestyle, but they're actually watching the TV and video. Now, an interesting thing that a lot of us may not know is it's not just the advertisement. I think one of the movies also brought out this. It's the flashing lights that activates the brain of the children and really hits a lot of reward centers. So the children are actually hooked into it. They're enjoying it. The brain says, I'm happy. And in a way, they think they're outside exercising and doing things. But in the brain they are, but physically they're not. So there's a disconnect.
All right, Rabbi David, if you don't mind me calling you Rabbi David here,
yes,
what about school lunches?
There are a lot of actually really great things that are going on with the school lunch programs. I'm on the Healthy Task Force for Sacramento City Unified, and the people there are working really, really hard to get local produce and to meet the nutritional standards. The thing about the Reauthorization Act that was talked about in the film that's fascinating, you might have heard it on the radio today or yesterday, is that they've increased the amount of money 6 cents per meal in order to meet these new standards, which for every 1,000 kids is $60. Oh my God. So you can see how far that goes. So actually what Fresh Producers is all about is healthy fundraising. And I'm really happy to talk to you about how at Peter Burnett Elementary School, the last month of the school year last year, we did a little pilot program where we were able to introduce raspberries and blueberries and watermelon and all sorts of other fruits and yogurt and granola to the breakfast program. And within 3 weeks, there was an increase of 13% participation in the program. And we also had a Reebok Foundation morning fitness curriculum that we instituted. And so we had 60 kids showing up at 7:45 in the morning to work with the PE teacher. And then we also did the produce bags fundraising that we did, and the parents raised $200 for new PE equipment in 2 weeks. So I think that that's how we really empower people. And you were asking about the roots of the crisis. There's, I think, 3 things. The microwave is said to be one of the main factors. The other is the guy at McDonald's who figured out that if you increase the size of the straw, then people will go through that 12-ounce soda really fast and want a 32-ounce soda. And then the other thing is poverty, and that carbs are really cheap because of the food and the farm bills and all of the things that are subsidized that where fresh fruits and vegetables are not subsidized.
Isn't it true that when we're drinking sweetened drinks, that the sugar makes us crave more and
Oh,
more and more?
Absolutely.
I want to address...
By the way, they put salt in.
Yes.
They put salt in so that you're actually thirsty at the end of drinking.
Yeah.
Lovely.
It's amazing the things you learn when you delve into this.
Yes.
Mickey, what would you say contributed to you gaining so much weight as a young man, a young boy?
Well, is it appropriate to say all of it? I mean,
Yeah.
everything that my panelists here have said and everything in the video contributed. Now, what I've identified as probably being the biggest contributing factor to my weight gain early on was my lack of perspective. So as a teenager, you know, they just haven't had enough years to understand the healthy decisions that need to be made to positively impact your health. So I was making decisions every single day, and I didn't see right away the negative impacts, and by the time I did, at 21 years old, I was already in a pretty deep hole.
We're glad that you dug yourself out,
Yes.
because you look
So
wonderful.
am I.
Yeah, really.
I wanted to just chime in on that just for a minute too. Statistically, it shows that about 90% of parents don't seek out help for their children with a weight problem. So that's a problem. That's a problem for us, that there is help out there now, and that if you have a child that has that challenge, whether they're telling you or not that they need help, then that's your opportunity. So.
All right, next, you want to say something?
I just wanted to, there was something at the Network for Healthy California conference a couple of years ago that was fascinating, which was that as obesity rates have risen, and they showed, you know, the states that had 20%, 25%, 30%, what also happened was people adjusted their attitudes toward weight. Now, some of that is okay, because there are people who have body types, right, that are meant to carry more weight, and that's okay. But there was an unhealthy thing. So this whole emphasis on self-esteem as being more important than actually health can be really detrimental. Yes. Just feeling good about how you are, the way you are, isn't necessarily the healthiest attitude.
Next question is, we all know that exercise is critical to losing weight and improving overall health, but not enough of us exercise. We all know who we are, and we all have trouble with motivation. How do we fix that? I'll have you two ladies respond first.
You know, I was thinking about that question, and one of the things I was sharing with the panel back in the back is that the truth is, if you look at everyone who's been successful at losing weight and keeping it off, which Cheryl can talk about because we want to also keep it off, is that they've incorporated exercise as part of their life. And I lost 45 pounds. I think I'm going on at least 12 years now. That's got to be part of your life. It has to be. So just like you schedule an appointment for Monday for, you know, to go to get your hair done, it's got to be part of your scheduled time. So that is something that, if you look at success stories, that's consistent.
Would you say it helps putting it on the calendar and making a commitment to that when you actually write it down?
Yes.
Absolutely, and to add to that from a scientific perspective, Can you lose weight if you only change your eating habits and don't exercise? Absolutely. You take in fewer calories, you can lose weight, but you're going to lose muscle and fat. And the goal here is to only lose fat. You want to maintain your muscle. Your muscle tissue burns 10 to 11 times as many calories as your fat tissue. And so you really want to lose only the fat because we need our muscle. It helps us to burn more calories so we can continue eating the things that we like to eat, and hopefully they're healthy most of the time. But also as we get older, we need to maintain our flexibility and keep strong bones and all of those things. So it's really, really imperative to find a successful weight loss program that lasts and keeps the weight off. You have to exercise. You have to make it part of your lifestyle. And if you don't like to run, that's okay. Hula hoop, take a dance class, just experiment until you find something that you love to do and you really look forward to. It really makes a difference.
Mickey, what motivated you to get started and keep going?
What motivated me to get started was my battle with anxiety and depression due to my being overweight. So there were nights that I literally could not sleep because I was so anxious. And after 3 years of struggling with that and finally making the connection between my weight and my anxiety, that's what actually led me to start a program. And once I saw that change and I felt how different it was being on an exercise regimen and eating right, I knew I never wanted to go back to where I was physically and, more importantly, emotionally.
Dr. Akers, how does the lack of physical exercise affect the body?
What you're tackling is the motivation, and that's, I'm going to say what everyone knows. It's really difficult. So I'm going to say, to chime in on that argument, is that you really got to find something that really speaks to you. You got to have it. You got to have it really work, and it has to have a work for you. It has to be fun. And one of the things that are going on in the world is there's so much stimulation from in ways that most of us don't even know. There's so much stim in the world. And research is just pulling out all kinds of information into our consciousness that the distractions are actually the problem. If we didn't have so much in our environment, hey, that looks like a fun sport, let's do it. There's nothing else to do. But we're in a very rich environment. It's very difficult to be motivated. So I'm going to say find out what you really love to do. I would say a sport of some kind, because the body will naturally try to chase something and win because we're motivated by achievement. That's sort of in our DNA. I would say sort of like these days you have so many crazy sports out there, people are doing it because you have to ramp up the excitement level just to get people to engage and watch.
Because we get bored very easily in our society of like, oh, I don't want to play that again, or I don't want to do that again, right? So I always want to learn something new. Rabbi David here, you're talking about fresh food. How fresh is fresh, and how do we know it's fresh? I kind of went off the paper. I kind of create my own questions sometimes.
That's good. You know if a farmer brings it to you that they're not bringing you their seconds, thirds, or leftovers. So I would say that's one of the main ways that you know it. There are, in a lot of the, there's a store in South Sacramento. We're part of the Building Healthy Communities initiative of the California Endowment. And there's a store there that sells produce at a really great price, but people don't shop there because they know it's crummy stuff. It's on the verge of going bad. So what we're attempting to do with some of the environmental districts and other forces is to put farmers markets into lower income neighborhoods and also have them become economic engines. And I think that that's really, really critical, that connection between, what we say for fresh producers is it's youth producing wealth from health. And that's part of how you motivate both the healthy eating and the exercise, is to create a whole system that creates feedback and reinforcement from a lot of different points of view. And there are studies that they're getting kids to read more by giving them rewards. We all like rewards. So creating some kind of reward system and creating self-efficacy and ways that kids feel better about themselves. So I know we're teaching them how to discern, the nutrition education that is going on through our program and a lot of other places is showing them what it really means and how to look at fruit and use it and know whether it's fresh or not.
Very good, very good. Now, how many of you came here tonight with maybe your child or someone that you know that's, you know, a youth that is maybe struggling with their weight? Can you raise your hands? How many of you came here just because you were curious and you knew it was a free event? Okay, well, I'm glad that you were here. Number 3, why is it important to be conscious of your weight and your child's weight? Why is that? Okay, most parents need to know this.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to chime in on this. It was amazing to me. I did a class for youth during the holidays last year, which I can't believe it's going to be the holidays in a few months. And because we weren't in session for Thanksgiving, I asked all the kids, you know, we don't focus on weight in class. That's a side thing. We focus on health and nutrition, but I do need to check in with them and see what their weight. So I asked them to weigh themselves at home and call me. 5 out of 6 kids didn't have a scale at home. Floored me. So that means their parents didn't know what they weighed either. Not only they didn't know what their child weighed, but they didn't know what they weighed. So I kind of thought, okay, so if we don't know what we weighed, we don't have to deal with the issue. It was just bizarre to me. I literally actually bought one of our teens a scale. Because still 6 months later, her mom hadn't bought a scale. So it's not so much, just to know in a roundabout way what your child weighs. If you haven't gone to the pediatrician, you can see, you can look at a BMI, you can look at, okay, this is what my child's supposed to look like weight-wise and see if they're off. But it's pivotal, not only that we know our child's weight, but that we know our own weight. Because as Rabbi David said, it's not about our looks, it's about our health. So that is why it's just so important to know that number. And no, you don't have to weigh yourself every day and be obsessed, but you need to know, Dr. Oz says, you need to know your numbers.
Every Sunday morning, I have a calendar, like an exercise calendar, and every Sunday is weigh-in day. And I write it down, and I see my progress. So I've had these calendars for the last 4 or 5 years to see my progress and see what's going on in my life, especially emotionally, what's happening when I see it correlate. Now, cases of type 2 diabetes are growing rapidly, and Dr. Akers, I think you would like to address this. I know you have family members.
Yeah. As the movie brings out, the type 2 diabetes is really, it's a reality, and they say 1 of every 3 perhaps. I'm even thinking it's higher than that in the future, and, you know, considering what we eat. The interesting thing about my family, my wife is a type 1 diabetic, and my first child is a type 1. Even though it's diabetes, it's actually a different mechanism, but it still focuses on the importance of looking at blood sugar, glycemic index on a food. How quickly does that food convert to a simple sugar in the blood? So I can't get away from this topic. Being a nutritionist and a kinesiologist, it's at work, it's at home. It's really important, though. I learned a lot.
Right. Cheryl, would you talk about that too? Type 1, type 2, and how do we address both? First off, maybe you can just explain to everybody how we recognize it.
Yeah. Well, would you like to, you'd probably make a better commentary. At the ranch, we have, I haven't had any type 1 diabetics come to the Biggest Loser Ranch. However, 1 out of every 4 contestants that comes to the ranch has type 2 diabetes related to their weight, and they all leave without it. Most of them come to, you know, in addition to the type 2 diabetes, our contestants come to the ranch with fertility issues, sleep apnea, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, a variety of other issues, and oftentimes a Ziploc bag of meds. And within 2 to 3 weeks of a rigorous exercise program and completely changing not only the types of foods they eat, but the timing of the food. Having 3 meals and 2 snacks a day, keeping a balanced allotment of those calories along with the right ratio of lean proteins, whole grains, and good fats. Their blood sugar turns around very, very quickly, and it's amazing how quickly you can take care of it yourself. And it's not just a way of eating for people who have diabetes. This is the way we should all be eating, with a healthy blood sugar. That's what we aim for. We'd have more energy. So many people, I know there are a lot of people in this room, you go to work or you go to school at 10 or 11 in the morning and you're tired, so you have a cup of coffee and then you get a cookie with it, and the same thing happens in the afternoon. And you have this vicious up and down cycle with your blood sugar. And so many Americans eat that way, but learning to eat with aiming for healthy blood sugar levels is something that we should all be doing, whether or not we have diabetes.
Mickey, did any of this cross your mind when you were feeling like over the last 2 or 3 years, I could possibly get some type of illness?
So that was one of the main things that motivated me. It was the fear, based off my anxiety and my depression, the fear that something was going to come up. I find myself incredibly lucky that I don't have type 2 diabetes, that I don't have hypertension, that I don't have high cholesterol, and all these illnesses that can come directly related from being overweight, being obese, I should say. And I finally realized that I don't want those things. I don't want to be 25 worrying about having a heart attack. So I had to attack it now, because I knew that I would wake up and I'd be 30, 40, 50 and still be overweight and be lucky to be alive if I was at that point. So I needed to make a change right now.
Do you have friends that are in similar situations that you were in a few years ago?
Luckily, there are very few people in my life who are at such an extreme case as I was. I was 375 plus pounds. The embarrassing part was the scales at my gym only went to 350. So we had to guesstimate that, and it showed that I was probably a little more than 375. So that was something that was also kind of a motivator. I was like, you know what, these scales don't even show me how bad it is. And the people in my life who are struggling with that, whether it be 10, 20, 50, 60 pounds, they've seen what I've done, and they've come to me and say, you're an inspiration, I want to do it. Just 2 days ago, my roommate, Dylan, who I'm extremely close with, who now weighs more than me for the first time in my life, he actually borrowed a shirt from me 2 months ago that was tighter on him than it was on me.
Oh.
And that kind of kicked him in the butt a little bit, and he came to me 2 days ago and he said, I want to lose 30 pounds by February. And the first thing I said to him is, whoa. Let's take this one step at a time. Let's put together a program that will kind of wean you into this a little bit, and then we'll start pushing harder. I think it's great you have a goal, and I'm glad I can inspire you, but we need to make small changes to get you there, because you developed bad habits, now we need to develop good habits.
A lot of times people want to go fast. They really want to go fast. And I love that you gave them good recommendations here. Rabbi David, how can a parent be mindful of not hurting their child's feelings?
That it's really important to slowly make those changes and to just introduce the right kinds of things and take out the wrong kinds of things. And sometimes just the environment is more important than what you say. And so I think that it's also, this goes way back, but after that horrible shooting in Kentucky a long time ago, Ted Koppel had a town hall meeting, and a parent stood up and said, lack of discipline is child abuse. And that has always stuck with me. Lack of discipline is child abuse. Kids do need boundaries, they do need rules, they do need that. And so by not dealing with setting limits, that is hurting the child. So for a parent to understand that and gently and firmly assert those limits is not hurting the child's feelings, it is supporting them.
In the long run, a lot of times they don't even realize that, because kids and teenagers, they just want to hear what they want to hear. I have a teenager.
I was just going to chime in on that too. If you talk to your child about health, like in LHT, we talk about health. This is not about what the number on the scale is, it's about your health. So if you come at all the people that I know that have just children that are really healthy and active, Dr. Akers has some amazing kids that are really healthy and active, is the parents educate them and talk, is that a good choice? Is that healthy? Again, about the health aspect. coming from that direction, no one can get upset with that. So if you're trying to say something to them, just, what's the difference between, a bagel and an orange? I mean, explain it.
A couple more questions here. There's so much misguided information out there on dieting, high protein, low carbs, no carbs. The only time I really pay attention to a box of cereal if it's like I'm having one of those weeks when I need more fiber. You understand? So that's when I really look at the things. Otherwise, I just kind of ignore it now because it's coming at us really fast and all the labels all start looking the same. And I just think they're lying anyway. Sorry, I'm veering off again off the page. So what guidelines should we follow to make sure we are eating healthy?
Well, I think it's subjective. The first thing is that you have to, it's always important to try to help your family learn to try new things, new ingredients. Whole grains is a big one, because at the end of the day, if you're going to force your children to eat foods that they don't like, it's not going to be successful. So, but increasing fruit and vegetable consumption is probably the one biggest problem that I see with the contestants on the show. I can't tell you how many times I've heard when I ask, how many servings of fruits and vegetables do you have a week? I hear, does ketchup count? Do French fries count? I still hear that all the time. So I think it's really important to be sensitive to that, but get your kids involved when take them to the grocery store, and the produce department, just about any store is so happy to let you taste things, and try to bring home a new food or a new vegetable every week and cook it together in a different way. And believe it or not, you're going to have some successes with that, and that'll increase your cooking repertoire. That's one thing.
What do you teach your students and patients about when it comes to food choices? Dr. Akers and Rabbi David, please respond.
We eat a modified Paleolithic diet, and the reason we do that is that when you look at the most reliable studies, and it looks like man has evolved the millions of years that it has by hunting and trapping animals, and the vegetables he'd find along the way. So the paleo diet, which is still becoming more popular now, I ascribe to that with the inclusion of fruits in season. When you study the paleo diet, it says if you eat a lot of carbohydrates, which in ancient times only happened 1 month out of a year, then you're telling the body that it's just about to be winter, and the body goes into what's known as a pre-hibernation metabolism, where you're going to increase body fat, you're going to increase insulin, and you're going to increase cholesterol just to survive a winter. So in a way, I think modern human beings are always preparing for winter and forgetting not to starve like you should and be cold. Since we're always warm and we're always eating, we run into this problem. So paleo.
We have a lot of school gardens now, and one of the members of our board, Delane Easton, was the superintendent of schools when 3,000 school gardens in California were started. And I think that that's really critical for kids to learn how to grow things. We're actually at the Sacramento County Youth Detention Facility with some of the really hardcore youth criminals, and we've put in garden beds there, and actually hope to plow up over some of the fields, so that they can actually farm and they can see stuff growing and they can learn about things. So at a middle school, one of the middle schools that we're at, we're expanding their palettes. Every day there's a different snack and introducing new food groups. And then we had an event at the end of last year where they prepared the food. And they had hummus and they had different salads. And so showing that it can be a source of creativity to prepare food, I think is, and good food is really important as well.
Mickey, I wanted to ask you, what was the one thing that you gave up when you first started changing your life? Food.
Probably,
which food?
The first thing I can remember being instructed to give up would be fried foods.
How long did it take you to do that?
It was actually, once I got into it, it probably was in the first month. I had almost completely eliminated it from my diet, with the exception of, an occasional slip up, which we're all going to have, and I learned not to beat myself up about. Mm-hmm. But as far as what I continued going forward, and I tried paleo, and I tried low carb, and I I tried all sorts of different approaches to it because there are 1,000 different schools of thought out there. Is just trying to have a balanced nutritional diet based off of predominantly fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grain carbohydrates and grains.
You have become a very wise man.
He has.
Okay, final question here. In closing, what can everyone in this audience do today to start making healthier choices and let go of some of the unhealthy patterns that are leading us to disease for ourselves and for our families? Rabbi, I'll have you start.
One of the things is actually looking at stress in our lives and seeing how great a role that plays in the choices that we make, and seeing whether there are some ways to reduce that stress. So, for example, whether it's taking a day off from technology or from reading the newspaper, or whether it's a different attitude at work or at home. There was a story once about this fellow who had his trouble tree in his front yard. And every time he came home from work, I see somebody nodding, he would hang all of his troubles on the tree, knowing that they'd be there in the morning when he went back to work to pick them back up. So I think finding creative strategies to deal with stress actually would be one of my main points.
Okay, Dr. Akers?
Yeah, I would agree with the rabbi that dealing with stress is probably number one. As far as what to look for in your health is sleep quality. So focusing on getting to bed earlier, and especially shutting off maybe devices, televisions late at night, because again, they become stimulation to the brain, and then you break your day-night cycles, and then we're in a problem there too. So stress.
Okay. Nikki?
I'd say embracing your problem, whatever that may be, whether it's stress from being overweight or stress from work or just the fact that you're overweight and you're not happy with it. Take that in, don't ignore it, don't justify it, don't create excuses, and don't allow obstacles to get in your way. And once you embrace that problem, then you have to start finding ways to fix it.
Don't expect to have Biggest Loser results at home. It's a reality show, but it's not realistic to think you can do that at home. It's their full-time job to lose weight. They don't have families and kids and school and other obligations. And at the same time, don't be impatient with yourself. Start with small steps and build up. And because it's just too overwhelming to think you can have incredible results overnight. But all that said, the 3 simple words that I like to share with people that mean a really big change is, well, actually it's 4 words. Lose the white stuff. White flour, white sugar, it sounds like a little step, but it is a huge step for most people. And you'll be surprised what a big difference this will be, not only on your waistline, but on your energy level. It's a really, really, really great place to start.
So much knowledge up here. One of the things I can add to that is the sugar thing is such a big thing to me because it astounds me that people eat their sugar, that they drink their calories. I mean, if I'm gonna have 300 calories, I want a piece of cheesecake. That's what I teach the kids. So look at what you're drinking. Is it worth it? That's easy.
Rethink your drink.
I know that it's getting late right now. I want to thank the panel for being here. You've given us so much to think about, baby steps, right? And of course, the movie has motivated us too. So I wanted to thank you to also mention that I, besides being on Good Day Sacramento every morning, and yes, I do need more sleep because that clock that goes off at 3 o'clock is not fun. I also am a facilitator with Motivating the Teen Spirit. We do workshops for youth, for teens, to teach them how to fall in love with themselves and make integrity-based decisions. And one of the things that I know that is a recurring theme is what they think of themselves and loving themselves, no matter how much they are judged, because I think we're in a very judgmental society, and you saw from the film how easy it is to think or call someone fat, overweight, and especially look in the mirror and say things negatively about ourselves. So that's one of the things we have to do. First, take that baby step to compliment the kids in our lives and complement ourselves, because the positive attitude really, really goes a long way in our bodies and in our minds and souls. So I know Cynthia has some closing remarks too.
I'm going to stand up.
And dance?
I'm going to stand up just to get at a different level. Absolutely. I, of course, have some thank yous to say. I have a few things to say before you guys rush out of here, but all of you got a questionnaire. That questionnaire is really important that you fill that out. A lot of times, and especially with children, we know that they are afraid to ask for help. So that questionnaire is for me. No one will email you or spam you. And I would be happy to get in touch with you. Not only help your children, but we have some great events that are coming up and some wonderful, wonderful network that we can help you. So please fill that out on your way out. There's also an envelope. We do have a nonprofit part of our foundation that goes to help put children through the classes. So feel free to do that as well. Of course, we want to thank our panel. Please, everybody, give a big round of applause. It's amazing that all of them are here, and I'm so fortunate and lucky. So I want to thank 3 Stages, Hanodi Rice, for helping us to get Cheryl here straight off the ranch, which she completely redid her schedule just to be here for you guys. So that was amazing, and Tina as well. These are very, very busy people. So in closing, when I thought about how to close this, I thought there's really 3 words that come to my mind, which is change, chance, and choice. And one of my favorite motivational speakers is Tony Robbins, and he talks about change happens in an instant. Change doesn't take a day or a week or a month or a year. It really takes a second, the second that you decide. Chance. One of the things I teach the kids, that's a positive, because I like teaching positive things, is chance. Each meal is a new chance to make a different decision. So instead of looking at it as I blew it for today, you get another chance. And the way most of us teach, it's 3 to 5 to 6 meals, small meals a day. So you get 6 chances a day to make a better decision. And finally, choice. I remember when I was 18, I watched my mother die as they tried to revive her. I watched her die of diabetes. I didn't get a choice to watch my mother grow up or have my mother watch me grow up. So don't do that to your children. Because of some of the choices that she made, I didn't get that option. About 9 years ago, I watched my favorite aunt have triple bypass because of some of the choices that she made. And the good news is that the bypass came out really good, but then she had a stroke in front of the whole family, right in front of us, and ended up paralyzed, and she's been in a wheelchair for the entire time because of some of the choices that she made. And 3 years ago, I will close with this, I unfortunately watched my youngest sister choose to end her life because she was on dialysis and didn't want to do it anymore. So the choices that we make impact not only ourselves, but our children, our family, our friends. Some people have choices, some don't. Most of you in here, you know, Dr. Akers talked about his family. Type 1 diabetes is not always a choice, but you can prevent type 2 diabetes and you can actually reverse it within a few weeks. So I urge you after this evening to really think about your choices. And thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it, and we will see you out in the lobby. Thank you.
If you have any questions too, they will be out in the lobby. Please stop by and say hello. I know they have some products too, yes? Okay, thank you, good night.